Okay, guys, this is going to be a short one. We're going to talk about Rule 403 and how it applies to the objection of cumulative. And specifically, I'm not sure across in real life, but how it comes across in mock trial is pretty simple. Cumulative evidence uh, in mock trial is usually objected to when a document is entered and that document's contents then get testified to during the course of a direct or cross-examination. The idea being that when a document is entered into evidence, it no longer needs to be presented to the jury because the jury will have the document in its entirety with them in deliberation. So that's where the theory behind that objection comes from. It's very stupid objection, but it's one a lot of teams will make, especially when their attorneys aren't very skilled and need to object to something. That's not something we do at FSU. I would very rarely object to cumulative. Almost always, if the objection you want to make is cumulative, what you're really trying to get out is asked and answered. But that's a form objection as opposed to a content objection. Regardless, we'll take a step back and we'll talk about cumulative and how to respond to it, even though you're not going to be making the objection. The difference between entering a document in and talking about its contents after that fact is this. When you're talking about the document's contents, you should, when writing the direct, include some sort of analysis or commentary from the witness on the document you entered with them. Usually you're going to be entering documents on experts, not always, but oftentimes. And they can comment on things about the document that the document doesn't itself contain. Let's say you have Officer Williams' text messages. Even if you don't want Officer Williams to comment on the content of the text messages, having him talk about the content to the extent that it relates to how he procured that evidence is very important. And it's evidence that is relevant and it shouldn't be excluded at all, but oftentimes would get objected to as cumulative because it involves Officer Williams somehow relaying the content of the document to the jury. It's not cumulative because in that case, Officer Williams is applying his experiences with the document and adding more context for how the document was procured onto the record. If it's an expert, then you can talk about the specific methods and analyses that were done to specific portions of the document. That comes up very often on solo and couples when it comes to the specific instances of character evidence that they rely on to reach their conclusions. So that's how I would respond to cumulative. Cumulative is rooted in 403. It's a bad objection. You should be making asked and answered if you really think it's egregious instead. But it's important to know because oftentimes, especially on these experts, bad teams will object to cumulative when you talk about the contents of a document after entering into evidence. That's entirely backwards. Be flippant almost when you're responding to cumulative objections because it needs to be very clear that you understand that that objection is completely unfounded. It's not grounded at all, and I'm entitled entirely to have my witness talk about the contents of the document if they have something legitimate to add. If they don't have something legitimate to add, then you probably shouldn't be entering the document through that witness anyway, or trying to talk about it regardless. But almost always there is something you can at least bullshit to add. That's cumulative. It's under Rule 403. Thanks for watching. We're going to be doing prejudicial versus probative, which is the crux of this rule in the next video.